Thank you, Tosca.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck, everyone. We're super happy to have you here. And I'm personally looking forward for your talk, Stefan. So it would be super interesting to hear. And let's have fun.
Yes. Thank you, Tosca.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck, everyone. We're super happy to have you here. And I'm personally looking forward for your talk, Stefan. So it would be super interesting to hear.
I think you're watching the stream, right? Because now we
Let's have fun.
We hear the recording from the stream. Right. How's it looking in the waiting room? There we go. People start dropping in, right?
Yeah, people are in the queue. Should we accept them, or is there a way to open for everyone?
I think you can.
You can just close waiting room, and then we'll let everybody in.
Thank you, Stefan. Nice.
Should I do it, or is someone else on it?
I think you got it, right?
I don't know where to find it, but yeah.
If you go to the shield down to the left in the middle, there's probably this enable waiting room. If you check that, or
Yeah, I cannot because it's gray for me.
oh, here we go. Hello, welcome. Nice seeing people dropping in. Welcome, everybody. Nice. Do we get started? We have a packed schedule, so maybe it's good to just start the introduction, and people will catch up as we go, since we have some welcoming notes to do. Yeah, so hi and welcome everyone to today's AI Think Tank, the AI Checklist Series #1, which is starting with data, organized by us, the students of AI Business Consultant Program at Hyper Island, in collaboration with AI Sweden and Hyper Island itself. My name is David, and I have the big honor to be the moderator of today's think tank. So this is the 5th think tank, which is for the first time ever for us, the first in line of a series of 4 think tanks that will be connected to each other. And for the think tank, for you who haven't been here before, I encourage you that you are here, you stay for the discussions that will happen later, and you participate as much as you can to share and to get as much out of it as you possibly can. And for your knowledge, this is also being streamed to YouTube. So if you have somebody who would be interested to watch it now on the stream or afterwards, since it will be saved as a recording, feel free to share it. I think we can drop the link as well here down below by some of my fellow arrangers or crew members. And also, I want to add that when we go into discussion and breakout rooms, we won't share that. So you know. So when we come to the discussion rooms, that will be for the room only. It's only afterwards when we share the discussion and insights it will be broadcast as well.
Oh.
So some of you might wonder a little bit about this if you haven't been here before. What is this and what am I doing here? So to answer the question, we have prepared a video which we show in the beginning of the think tanks. We'll try to answer that. Before we play it, I hear a microphone. Is there somebody that we can mute or that can mute it?
It's Johnny, I think.
All right. It seems quiet. Okay, so without further ado, let's play the video and see.
Hello there. We are so happy to welcome you to the AI Think Tank. You might be wondering what this event is all about. Well, we want you, business leaders, tech enthusiasts, and the curious to learn about AI. The AI Think Tank is a collaboration between a team of AI business consultant students from Hyper Island together with AI Sweden. Our mission is to connect people, spread awareness of AI, how it can help your businesses, and spark your interest. We invite AI leaders to share their knowledge and bring inspiration about different topics and applications of AI. For an hour, you will be able to connect by creating this event, meet new people who share the same interest and curiosity, discuss by creating discussion rooms where you can share your thoughts, ideas, and potential use cases, innovate by learning from our invited AI leaders and the tools that will be shared. You will become AI aware and potentially get new ideas to solve your business challenges. Let's get started.
Great. Okay, so I think we're on the same page now. That's awesome. So we are going to do a check-in here, everybody. This is something that we do from Hyper Island and brought into this think tank series. So the purpose of the check-in is to get a little sense of where everybody is. And what we're going to do is together, when I let you know, you're going to type in the chat and send it. But not send until I let you know, so we get a waterfall effect. It's a waterfall check-in. So from 0 to 100, how well do you know your business's data? So if you think about it for a second, type a number between 0 and 100, and on 3, let's just send it and we'll see what happens. So 1, 2, 3. Fun. There's some mixed here. Pretty high though. A lot over 50 and some below. That's fine. That we're here to learn and to know how we can get a better knowledge of our data. Cool. Nice. So without me standing here and babbling on here for so long, I will introduce the expert for today. It's somebody we've been promoting in our channels. Oh, sorry. I want to jump back a bit. We have an agenda. Sorry about that, Oskar. Go back so everybody knows. So the agenda is the welcome here. We're at now. We will have Stefan Vendin will join us. I'll give him an intro soon. Then we'll have breakout rooms to discuss with each other, and then share the insights to innovate in the big room. So what we need to discuss about. Do we have any questions to Stefan or to each other, whatever, and then some closing announcements and next events. So now let's move on to our expert of today. Somebody we've been promoting. He's the head of change management, business design, and strategic programs at Neo4j. Correct me here later, Stefan, but the data management and visualization tool, which I've used myself a lot at my type of Hyper, very helpful. And on the topic of exploring data, he is a big inspiration to me, and I think a lot of students at Hyper on the AI Business Consultant Program. Yeah, expert. I said it, Stefan. So, a warm welcome to Stefan. The stage is yours.
Oh, the stage is mine. Super cool. Super nice to be here also. Always questioning about this idea of the expert. Would be good if you let go of screen. There we are. So let's see if I can go share my screen. My aim for today is basically sharing all the weird stuff I have done and lessons learned. Working with data at a graph database or a graph platform company. I guess you see my screen, so we're not gonna do that. We talked about my title, it's long, pretentious, and says very little about what I often do, but I work in the midst of in between mankind and technology, and I thought I should share my perspective on starting with data. And I mean, if any of you just Google starting with data, you would know that there's a gazillions of guides. You know, basically you can pick any tech company plus sandbox and there you go, right? Or should you start a GitHub? Should you have another repo, or how should it work? Like, I'm not going to cover any of those, but I'm going to share perspectives, which I think is very important. And since this is a mix of some technical people, I think, and also business people, I thought I should look upon this on that perspective. So very often we have this idea of how to start with data. It's basically about, you know, this magical flying unicorns thing, right? There's a guy there. Very often it is actually a male person in the boardroom talking about AI. So AI has become almost a little bit like way back a couple of years ago, you know, when everybody has had to have an app. Right now, everybody has to have some sort of AI project, but they don't know anything about it. And then on the other hand, we have the little more so-called technical person, and they are represented in this case by this very funny little meme here. When they find out that machine learning really means endless data cleaning. So very often, this is the kind of, you know, poof, kind of shock when you get into these things, and I think this is because we look upon it very, very differently or very strange. So my thought here is to share lessons on how I did this. So let's dive in. So we can talk about the 5 V's often used to define data, right? We have, of course, volume that we talked about before. We have velocity, basically rate of change or direction. We have variety. We have veracity, and this is kind of funny, sometimes we have also value, right? One could argue that this needs to go high on the top, but very often, especially around AI, it's hard to kind of make money in the beginning, people stumble around and so on. But I think one thing that kind of strikes me, also working on a graph database company, we work with connected data. We see little value in just lonely documents hanging out there flying, because the value is when it's connected, right? So one powerful V that is almost always missing is valence. And valence in chemistry is the combining power of an element. In psychology, it is the intrinsic attractiveness of an object. In linguistics, it's the number of elements a word combines. And in the context of data, valence is the tendency of individual data to connect and the overall connectedness of the data set. And I think this is something that is literally booming now. And I think this is because of a lot of things. But if anybody would be in data and AI, we all know that correlation does not imply causation, right? Most likely the number of people who drowned by falling into a pool have nothing to do with films Nicolas Cage appeared in. One could think that if one weren't kind of a Nicolas Cage kind of fan in that sense. I'm not, so I would maybe hoping for that. No, we don't want people to drown. But I think this kind of jump towards connected data and the need to kind of start explaining things, right, is also why we see a very cool prediction, something that kind of blew my mind. So by 2025 graph technologies will be used in 80% of data and analytics innovations. And this is up from 10% in 2021, facilitating rapid decision making across the enterprise. So look at that speed. So the jump from 10% up to 80% in just 4 years means that we are in this kind of paradigm shift. And this is something we kind of noticed at Neo. We have been loving graphs for a very long time, but all of a sudden we saw that literally this exploded. I remember there was a post from DeepMind's, Google DeepMind's team that I think around 2018 something, when they said basically that they can't go any further within table structures and that they have to kind of adapt network structures, meaning a structure that is built more likely like the universe. It's very rare to see the universe built as tables, right? So we are in this kind of change, right? Because when we think about it, every single one of us, when we think about data, almost always think about tables, columns, rows, right? So basically we have created a tool, and the tool itself has created our mental model. And on the topic of mental model, who could be better to ask on what to do than our dear friend Yoda, right? And in one of my favorite movies, The Empire Strikes Back, there's this classical scene when he just spits strategic wisdom. It's a scene when Yoda and young Luke Skywalker are trying to get the X-Wing out of the swamp, where Yoda dropped the fantastic quote, "You must unlearn what you have learned," right? So this is a very tricky part, because if it were just about forgetting or accepting something, it would be very easy. But I would define unlearning in that sense that it's not about forgetting. It is about the ability to choose an alternative mental model or paradigm, right? Because the dilemma is that if the only storage we have is boxes equal tables, everything we see is basically just about that, right? So we are trapped in this cognitive bias that involves an over-reliance on a familiar tool. And then we overcomplicate this by adding, harder and harder things. But there is also a lot of power within a simple working model. And I think a great example of doing that is that I brought a couple of use cases that this kind of new technology actually stood, or it was crucial for it to actually get the result. So if you look upon ICIJ's famous investigation, everything from Panama Papers, FinCEN file, and most recently now Pandora Papers, we see that people that do not like to pay tax or hide things, they use the limitations in the existing paradigm of the structure of tables, meaning that if you're punished by the amount of hops that you do, then the easy part, if I want to hide my criminal or semi-criminal activity, I just need to go over the amount of hops that you can do. And I think this is the sweet spot here. Like in a graph native store, you would not be punished by the amount of hops, right? And I still remember way back, what can it be, like half a year ago, it was summertime, late summer, we were recording Nodes, which is an event, online event that we do at Neo4j. And me, Emil, and Andreas was recording a demo where we did a replica of a social network at the size of Facebook. And then we basically, because what happens there is the users don't really grow, right? They go up to a plateau and they usually stay there. But then what grows exponentially is the amount of messages. And I think the interesting part there is that we kind of 10x that, right? So we 10x it, and then we 10x it, and we 10x it again. And at one point, we were up over 1 trillion nodes, and we run queries across these and could do it in real time. So all of a sudden, it appears magical. It appears like AI. At that sense, it's not even AI or machine learning. It's just a super powerful structure. Then, of course, you can run machine learning in your graph structure, and it becomes even more powerful. So how do you get to start? Let's ask Yoda. For God's sake, stop with that trying to start, right? Already in the trying, you already gave up, right? You come up with an excuse, I'm only trying. So just do it. I mean, and you fall off, you do it again. You do it again, and you do it again, because you can sit there and try and talk about trying, but we all know in theory there is no difference between theory and practice. In practice, there is. This is true for everything. It's true for data. It is also true for swimming. So when learning how to swim, water usually helps. I say usually because actually there was one that one time learned how to swim by just YouTubing. But water actually helps. And on top of that, it helps much more than the latest pair of trendy, cool, whatever you want, swim pants. And also post about advanced techniques that you don't yet understand. This is something I see a lot, right? So when you are to start with data, what you do is very often that you overcomplicate things on such a level that it's, of course, is set up to fail. Instead of starting small and looking upon the trajectory that you're making. So if we are talking about doing machine learning on graphs, maybe it would be interesting to first learn the structure of a graph, right? Then you might start doing queries, and then you might start doing algorithms, and then you might start doing embeddings and so on, and scale your knowledge and know when to use what kind of tool and so on. So don't start with the hardest part directly because then you are set up to fail, right? And this is something that I talk about a lot. I have the fortune to do a lot of lectures in the topic of physics. And I usually start my lectures with these, right? So on one axis, we have how exciting the questions are to a novice student. And then on the other axis, how many years of math are needed to understand the answers. And every single one, when they join in the beginning, they want to do quantum mechanics, general relativity, or any of these kind of things, right up there in the danger zone. But they stay away from the basic things, which actually are the thing that it could do, right? So I think be aware that, yes, it's cool to talk about hyped words and try these things, but there's so much you can do with easy small steps, right? So I suggest, again, take a step back, start doing it small. And as I said in the beginning, if you want to start with data, just Google any technology company plus Sandbox. I mean, if you're interested in working with graphs, we have great sandboxes full of different kind of data sets. So you don't even need to load your data, right? Because then it's just about you to explore it. And while exploring your data, and I think this is one of the most important parts, right, is to be mindful about what you know and how that affects the way you ask questions, right? So we can do this classical kind of tweet from Molly Telford about the lessons about asking the right questions to get meaningful data brought to you by a 4-year-old. So it starts out with, should I put a banana in your lunchbox? The 4-year-old said, sure, they're healthy and I'm supposed to bring healthy food. Molly said, will you eat it? Definitely not. I don't like bananas, right? And this sums up a lot of what I see, right? Very often we start with data because we want to prove something. We want to basically tell a story about this is how it is and so on. And I think this is where it gets a little bit complicated. I think you should just start out exploring and then be open. There's this old kind of, wisdom, a quote. I don't remember who said it, but if you want to see the truth, basically hold no opinions. And I think this is super important because very often what we see, especially in today's media landscape, is that, I have data to prove it. I have research. I have scientists. I have X, Y, Z to prove it, right? And it's just like, I mean, it might be statistically correct, but again, we all know what that means, right? It's just another set of lies in a fancy word. And then last but least on this little kind of mindset approach, I would like to talk about something that I think it's important. And for that to be represented, I will put Mark Zuckerberg up here. Very often, I think we have come a long way without basically caring for what data we are collecting. I mean, we all know now with GDPR and kind of cookies and all of these consent buttons, how people make it super hard for people to kind of opt out. Very often it's super annoying. You have to go in and mark them and click them one by one. And for me, this says a lot about the brand, actually. Very often I think about this the other way. So a lot of people look upon a brand by the old way of doing it, meaning you look upon a brand based upon the image of the brand, and that's very often based upon marketing and PR and other things, maybe also your friends using it. But I would argue that we more and more start going for a society when the data part is an actual part of the brand strategy of the company. So for the business people on this call, think about this, and for the practitioners on this call, definitely think about this, because I would argue that you can have a shiny logo, but we all know at the end, power corrupts, right? This is why we have Mr. Zuckerberg here. So I would say that a technology company is best understood by the data it collects, not the services it provides, right? So if somebody tried to take my data without giving me anything for it, I know exactly how kind of greedy they are, and most likely I will not give it to them. Most likely, since I'm also the way I am, I'm just going to spend a little time messing with them and having a good time. So they actually have corrupt data, because I think the most important part when you're starting with data is, again, what we talked about in the beginning, right? If we go back to that, don't overpromise, right? There's not going to be any magical flying unicorns. You're going to spend a whole lot of time trying to get a hold of data. And then when you got it, you're going to spend even more time cleaning it, right? And then cleaning it, structuring, doing modeling, and so on. So just start slow and go with that. And I think this is about everything that I had from my part. I think we got 1 minute in bonus, which is super good. So yeah.
Nice.
Happy to hear.
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add in that I missed your references and quotes. I almost forgot that those were part of the lectures. They really they me as a Star Wars fan works well.
Yeah, if you need to know anything about life, just do Empire Strikes Back. There is so much wisdom in there. Also, I guess the wisdom comes from other places, but hence again, you can learn from any experience. And I think this is also the kind of point that I would like to take with us here. It's that you will learn when you do it, right? You can talk about doing it, but again, just dive in there and do it.
Yeah. Well, a question for you here. Do you, because we are going to go into breakout room soon and discuss a bit about the topic of collecting and looking at data. Do you have any question you would be interested to hear what people think that are participating, or should we leave it up to the rooms?
I think it would be interesting to see where they go on, but I think, yeah, let's do like that. If I tell it now, everybody want to be good students and then come back with an answer. So I think the interesting part for me, again, is this whole area about AI as part of something bigger than just data, or it's not part of the technology stack or departments. It's rather part of the core of the brand, right? So again, back to that, how often do you think about these things when starting with data? Because it will be a hard part, right? It's like if you collect data, who knows what's going to happen later on? So it's a neat balance.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so we're about time for going into the breakout rooms. We'll touch back here afterwards, but just so you know, I repeat it. There won't be a screen recording sent on YouTube during this session on the breakout rooms. And you who are watching on link, if you have somebody you're watching with, or if you're in the chat on YouTube, just interact with each other and see if you have some common bases there or questions that you want to lift as well. We'll keep an eye on it as good as we can. So we're going into breakout rooms. You will have 1 to 2 facilitators with you that are AI business consultant students to help facilitate and also participate in the discussion. and we'll meet you all back here in the big room at 1:45. So please engage and learn, and I'll see you soon.
Is this still being recorded then?
I think this is we're on a live stream now.
Oh, this is good.
All right.
Then we can talk about secrets
Exactly.
for 15 minutes.
Now you
which
can
is
share
fine.
the secret.
Now we can share the secrets. They're all safe with you. There is no secrets. I think collaboration is the only way to go about these things, and it comes from both individual but also like a company perspective, I would argue. I mean, you can't build everything, right? There's always going to be somebody better at something than you, and I think this idea of open source and how things connect and how the network build the future is for me a very appealing democratic process almost, at least. What do you think about that? Have you been exploring David Harris and Levi? Oh, one jumped out. He had enough. Now it's only David and Levi left. So David, you're unmuted. So when was the last time you explored something like a data set, and which technology, and what was the data set, and any thoughts or questions?
A good question. Now, I'm doing my internship at a machine learning company, and I got to practice with a financial institution data set.
So I guess fraud kind of stuff, or
no? This was actually of loan takers, seeing how maybe the analyst I did was who is a good customer and who's a bad customer. Where do we make money and so forth. But
who is so good? Is there such a thing as a bad customer? Are you allowed to say that? Now you will be punished. This isn't the live stream. I'm messing with you.
This is a live stream. No, but I like I was thinking about the analogy you make about the swimming pool. Like the water helps, because that's my experience as well. I'm taking some courses in Python and doing data manipulation and analysis, but when I actually got the data set for a real case, that's when I that's when I learned.
Because then the pressure are on, right? Because in practice, this is where it happens. In theory, you sit there, then you understand, you want to see more, but then very often also we lack a little bit of passion in these scenarios. When you get there, you need to answer something. Then, this energy, at least for me, builds up. I start to want to explore more. And then, sometimes you also get results that you're like, no, this cannot in any way be true. I don't want to believe this, because it's also totally against everything that I believe in. Referring back to that old dating app case that I talked with you guys about, I think on Hyper. It's like, what happens when you get a result which is like literally saying that everything you believe in is totally wrong, and then it's like, okay, but I don't want to believe. And I think this is the kind of cool part, because the more we practice on that, the more kind of open we become as humans. And I think this is the great part. It's not about you're right and I am wrong. It's about, why are you right, and why do we define what I do as wrong, and what would be the next thing that we don't know, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I agree. I'm seeing you now. Sorry, I got distracted. We have some people in the room. Are they waiting to be put into breakout room?
Yes, please, if you can assign us to one of the.
I don't think I have. I don't think I have the clearance to do that. But maybe you do, Levi.
But we can have a special breakout room here, and we can just have a live stream conversation. People very often are very comfortable in speaking in front of everyone, so that should be fine. What's the worst thing that can happen? I say a bad word that I'm not supposed to say.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Cool. So who do we have? I see that we have at least one hyper student there, and then we have one that I don't know by name, Eva Björnsdotter. Where are you calling from? Or may I ask?
Yeah, you're a student, but
I'm
Also
calling from
student.
yeah, I'm calling from Iceland. I finished my master's
Nice.
degree in digital management at Hyper last summer, or yeah.
Nice. And also you have
So-
some notes there in the back that might be sensitive data points on the whiteboard.
No,
we
they're
all
not.
can read in the-
You don't understand
not.
them, so it's fine.
Yeah. There was a plan. There was a plan, and then it says liggur. So basically, ligg it's laying down, and ur is of course watch. So plan for the alarm watch. That must be it, right? Pretty much, and it needs to be cleared tomorrow in the second phase. I see this. This is any scrum thing going on there.
Yes.
On the whiteboard.
No, they're not. You don't understand them, so it's fine.
And then we have Aki.
There was a plan.
Hi,
Mm.
welcome. So how do you work with your data? Do you feel like I didn't catch all the check-in answers, but how do you guys feel about your company, your business data? Do you feel sure of it, or do you know it?
I hear two people talking at the same time.
You don't understand them, so it's fine.
Ah,
Very nice stereo appearance. No, but I think it's an interesting. Yeah, Eva, go ahead, please.
Yeah. I mean, you could say it's a little bit of a mess. There is a work in progress going on.
What? Is it a mess with your data? I have never heard that ever. I mean, this is what everybody has, and the one that I thought it was Philip who said 100%. That was the only answer that I don't believe in. I mean, it can be 100%, but that can also mean actually that it did only have one data point, 0 data. So in that sense, but I think the interesting part it's that we also, maybe because of this hype of big data, that we tend to kind of over obsess about the amount of data. I have so much data. I have this data. You know, it's not about how much you have; it's what you can do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have like gazillions of amount of data, but you can't answer a simple question or any question of value or help anyone, then what's the point, right? So I think.
Somebody
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true. But I'm curious. You mentioned about there is nobody who knows 100% of the data unless it's like one data point. You don't think that's the case? Like a bigger corporation, they can't know 100% of their data.
But I mean, data in itself, right? And I think this is the problem. And I think it's also a problem because of previous structures. Very often we come from a paradigm when relational stores were everything we had, right? So basically what we then do is we have one table with one part of data over here, we have another table here, and then we need to do joins between them, right? And the more hop we have, the slower it goes. So meaning that we start doing this kind of batch processing. So in that, we start to collect data to fit that batch pattern. And if we only batch every week on Mondays, then basically we have a new set of data every Monday. But that doesn't mean that you don't have new data points or new insights during that time. So this idea that there is a perfect state, I think this is the whole problematic part of it, right? Because since everything around your data set would most likely change and evolve over time, in a lot of cases, unless you not just lock in one single data set and don't touch anything. But then again, nothing will happen if you don't touch it. So it will become boring in that sense. So I think more and more it's this kind of evolving kind of flow. And this is also why it's so interesting to see more and more also thinking back upon what we do at Neo. So from the beginning onwards, the structure was built as a transactional database, but then of course it has super high analytical value. And in that, when I look upon this and talk with other data scientists, very often, in the developer world, we can brag about milliseconds, right? It competes super quick. But then we come to the data scientist, and they're like, no. As long as I know it's going to compute, I'm fine to go home and let it run over the night, and then I have the results tomorrow. This is, of course, a limitation based upon existing structure, existing tools, and existing mental models. I am pretty sure that we will see how this will change over time. The way I learned about a lot of the algorithms, for example, I had like common knowledge about kind of Louvain. If you talk about, community detection, I know union find or connected components, triangle count, and so on. But then I remember when we start to introduce these libraries, if I can run them in basically real time and get the result and understand the result because it's clearly more visible, then I start to apply what I called the idiot. I just, instead of running one algorithm that gives me the result that I want, I just run all of them to see what more can it be here if I structured it the other way. And it allowed me to do stupid things. 98% of those were horrible results. I didn't learn any. I learned a lot. I didn't have any answer of value to the client. However, in that, I also found 2% of things that I have zero idea that, holy crap, this is awesome. Why didn't I think about this? Because there was a bias built in my existing mental model. And I think that approach of what I call the idiot, when you just throw some algorithms on and see what happens. And I think for me, this is a very interesting approach. Being curious and also like being new with data, it of course helps if you can run it and then it completes quickly. So you don't have to run it and then be super scared if you did a typo here and there, and if you tuned the parameters wrong and then you wasted 8 hours. Everybody knows this feeling, right? And anyone that's a little bit older than me knows also this kind of, you send it to any cluster and it takes forever. And then you come back, it's like, oh, darn it, I forgot to tick that box. Or, oh no, I should have changed this threshold. Or, I should have changed the damping factor to XYZ or any of these things. So,
yeah. But I have a thought going back in the middle of your speech or talk there, but the thought I had is like, okay, so say you start with your data, your company's data, you get a sense of it, you play around, you see opportunities, you can see, okay, here might be some interesting insight. But I've been working a bit with machine learning in the past 6 months, and what have occurred to me is when you mix the data you have with external data sources, that's when you can. It's a different kind of recipe. Then you get something else that might not been there before. But I don't know, how have you experienced anything of this, Stefan, to look externally as well to complement?
Yeah, I think this is the majority of what we do very often, right? And this is again in the nature of what we do as a graph database company. We work with networks. We don't work with silos. So in the whole idea of what Emil and the guys come up with, that we most likely will have more data, and more likely it has very little value not being connected. So that's the whole foundation of what we do. So I think there haven't been a single like session of work that I've done that has not been combining data sources. Very often this is how you get to insights, right? And then even if we can take any pharma, for example. Maybe you take your company's science or research result. You take then some other publicly open data set, but it's still very narrow in the domain. But again, it's super spread out again. So, this is in anything that we basically do. So, I think it's super cool. Of course, you don't need to do it, but then the more closer you want to be there is to kind of see, like, could this be relevant? If so, how can I connect it? I think, again, the mistake that, however, a lot of people do, just because you can add data doesn't mean that it has a value, right? So if you just add data and it's not connected to anything, you're just adding things for your system to break. And this I see a lot. People are like, oh, can we add this? It's like, why? You don't have a single question that is important with this. Oh, but just add it. I want to add more. This is obsession of big data, right? Can I have more? It's like, my precious. Bad impersonation there, but you get the point, right? So I think, again, like thinking about, okay, I add this. What did I learn about this? Was it valuable or was it not? So we don't want to add just data for adding it, but add it with like a hypothesis. Because I think that is the good part here, being hypothesis driven, right? Coming up with this kind of ideas. Oh, what if? And then yes, no, falsify, validate.
Yeah.
Ooh, falsify, validate, and then do that on a quicker kind of scale, because then because I mean, the other hand would be to go, I'm not sure if this has any value. I'm not going to try it. And then, of course, you're just going to play it safe, and then you are just going to be boring and do what has already been done before. Eva?
But I also think it's very important to keep to make sure that you use when you are deciding on collecting the data or getting the data, it's like, what are you going to use it for? Like, why are you collecting the data? Because if you're just collecting data to collect data, like you just said, with the big data and with like more and more and more and more, you can always go into more. But is there any value in getting more?
Yeah, but I think
we don't know.
This is a very common trap, and also like the quality of the data that's being captured. I mean, again, people go for like quantity. I mean, seriously, go for quality. Like, find out how you need to structure it, find out how you need to clean it, and set up a process for that. Because if you're just collecting crappy things, it's just basically you're a garbage kind of pile at the end. And some of it is good if you have, I don't know, in the garden, might turn into soil one time, but if you add plastic in there, it's going to take a lot of years.
I have a question regarding some company, for example, providing service for free. I don't want to mention one company name. For example, for form making, for questionnaire, a lot of stuff can be done free. I want to know the concept of while the customer becomes the data, becomes the value, how to make safe that our data will not be shared for research purpose or other commercial purpose.
So what was the question? How, the last part, I missed that.
Yes, sorry. How we can protect our data to be public and to be used from by other companies in different ways while we are using their free service.
Maybe don't use the free service if the service is based on collecting data. I don't know. I mean, this is a classical thing, right? You want the cake, but you don't want to pay for it, but you still want to eat it, and then you give away something else. But then again, I think this comes down to also the part that I said, that I think it's important to look upon data from a brand or strategy company perspective, because people will know that you collect data, right? So, oh, now we have to ask for consent, and then everybody slash on that consent thing. The interesting part, if you measure the amount of data being actually collected now, before they forced to ask for it, now since they have to ask for it, they just take everything. Before they took what was necessary. Now people are just going bonkers and just taking everything they can find, because it's hard to find that, no, I don't want to give you data. So how can you protect for it? I guess there's a lot of ways, some more legal than others, but you can of course use any VPN. You can clear your cookies. You can not allow them for storage, create fake accounts when you need to give away your email. Because very often what they are doing is having this kind of unique identifier. And very often that is your name, email, phone number, right? And this is how they tie it together. I noticed that Apple then, they do a lot of this. They ask for you not to be tracked by the app, for example. But I noticed the other day that they also have this service of hiding your email. I don't know if it works or not, but I think, again, one of the most common identifiers is, again, the email part, right? You log in with one email here, and then I noticed that you use the same evil over here. And that's how I can connect two data sets together. So again, hiding those or having crappy ones could also be fun. Oh, there's a cat there. Hello, little kitten. Is it a kittler? I should probably not have said that.
It's a she.
I was shocked the other day. Apparently, there is a thing of kittens that look like Hitler. It just literally blew my mind. This is what we do with the internet. We can also save humanity, but we decided to spend time on kitten that looks like Hitler. And here I am talking about it. So now most likely all of you will go and Google it, and now it's just even worse. Oh my God, we didn't deserve AI. We should go back to hunter-gatherer again.
What have you done, Stefan?
Yes, what have I done now again? It was only 1 minute left, and then boof, totally ruined it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Do I have any? Harry, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are we looking?
Good. I will close the breakout rooms, so everyone should be back.
Cool. Okay. Welcome back then, everybody. We went a little bit over time, but I hope you had good discussions.
I don't think everyone is back. Sorry.
Sorry.
I don't think everyone is back. They're coming back now. So if you just give
okay.
one more time.
Okay,
sorry.
So we can talk a bit more about worthless memes and
life, meaning of life, reality as it exists. But I think it's interesting concepts also, like what we do with technology. And who knows, maybe stupid and worthless memes aren't that bad. I mean, one of the biggest kind of triggers for me to investigate something in society is when people start laughing and doing memes or any of these things about them, right? The sooner I see something going on, then I know, oh, there's going to be something very interesting in here, and then I go investigate that. So it's a very good trigger.
Yeah, here we go. I see the number jumped up a bit. Now, okay, welcome back. I hope you had interesting discussions and new connections maybe, or insights shared in the rooms. And what we usually do now is we open up to share some takeaways, what you discussed in the rooms. Can we maybe we can close down the share screen for a while, so we can see, I can see everybody, and there we go. So is there anybody who would like to share what they talked about, something interesting, or ask a question that came up, whatever it can be?
Nobody will ever ask anything if you ask like that.
How
Just
do
pick
I
a
do
name.
it then, Stefan?
Pick a name and ask them.
Okay, Adrian, what did you talk about?
Thank you. Yeah, we had a really interesting discussion about two really different cases. One being Stockholm Stad and having a lot of data, but some challenges with both quality and processes, and the other one being a high-tech transformer company, which has some different challenges in codifying context and understanding different contexts from text and different languages. So two totally different challenges, although both related to data and gaining value from data. Please add if I missed something. And
who was in your group? Anybody else in the group?
Is me, John, and Anna.
Okay, is it anybody working at Stockholm Stad or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you have first hand-on experience in the room. Nice. Anybody else? Any other room? Olof, for example. Haglund.
Yes, hello. We had a cozy little fireside chat about data and everything it entails, and how to get the max out of your data, and not just look at one angle of it all, but try to look at everything. yeah, and different sectors. Yeah, it was a nice little chat.
Nice. Did you have any insights with you? Anything that you feel like that you caught up on in the group specifically?
Let me think. Maybe that data in itself, it's complex in the way we apply it to society. We spoke a lot about ethics and like the different country like legislations. Like it's very easy to view this as the internet and everything in this open space, but once you start to apply it to like the real world, who knows what's going to happen in that sense, you know?
Yeah. It's limitations of different sorts. Legislation is a big part of it, for sure.
Yeah, but I think we also touch upon that, David, like how we come up with these kind of rules and then immediately we then break the rules as humans, right? We talked about the consent of cookies, for example, as when people start being forced to ask for consent for them. If you look upon the rise of the amount of data people collect is now higher than ever, because now they have to ask for it. So if I have to ask for it, I can just take it all. And it become this kind of, I did a very bad impersonation of Lord of the Rings, My Precious. I'm not going to redo that because it was awkwardly weird. But I think that this is again thinking and being aware that this is very often how we act. And I think there's a great opportunity for every single one in here to kind of think about this, take a step back and think about how can we use data to actually provide something good. In NEO, we have Graphs for Good, for example, where we do Panama Papers, when we help research around COVID, cancer, diabetes, and so on. So we try to kind of help out and do good here. So I think that is also a very important part. Don't be overly greedy. It's actually nice to be nice.
Yeah. Well said. We're running a bit out of time here. We'll maybe have one more room if there's somebody who would like to share some what you talked about or some insights. Let's see, Victor, or maybe here. Wait, we have Joveria. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Joveria. Yeah. We talked about like 2 different companies. Like we had 2 members. One was working with small medium enterprises, and the next one was working with flight navigation services. So it was very nice to hear both of them talk about data. Like the organization, they are very different, but the data problems they are facing are pretty similar, like how to get the data, how to work with the current data, or how to correlate data. So that was really nice.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're starting to wrap up this, and so we gotta share screen. Lovely. Thank you for sharing what you've discussed, some of the rooms. So we have a little bit of announcement here. I heard that some of your rooms talked about the ethics and the stuff like that, legal aspects. And in this series that we have now started off, the checklist series, we have done now start with data, and we're coming up on 3 more that will be in the series: bias and ethical AI models and use cases, and then AI implementation being divided on the months to come. So I hope that you will join in on our series and continue this journey. And in the end, hopefully we will look at the final stages of implementing AI and machine learning into your organization or clients or whatever it might be the case. So that will come up, and let's see where we have. Yeah, we have a community that we would love to invite you to. It's building up as we go, and hopefully this is a place where we both can be inspired and connect with each other. If you have questions, want to bounce ideas with somebody. So everybody here is working with the think tank are there. Also the students at Hyper Island AI business consultants are there. So you can change thoughts or open up a discussion there as well. So you scan the QR codes if you'd like to join, and we'll also send out the information about it afterwards. So before we check out from this event, I want to extend a thank you for everybody who helped arrange this, from the think tank crew to the facilitators right here. And I think I speak for every one of us, for you, our guests. Reach out, connect. We invite you to talk to us if you want to discuss some more or get some input on your cases as the best of our abilities, or to our contacts. So today's checkout, we want to just make sure what you've learned. So if you'd like, before you leave, please enter in the chat something that you take with you today, and share that with the rest of us, and do that as you go. And otherwise, other than that, I would like to extend a big thank you to Stefan. You've been amazing. It's always a pleasure to have you with us and hear you talk. It's very inspiring.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure to be here. I think one of the funniest part was actually when we just like winged it, I guess, when everybody was in the breakout room. We kept talking about random things. That's what I love the most. So also extending this to the network. So if you're sitting here and want to know more about me or what we do at Neo4j, the easiest way to do so is just to go to LinkedIn, connect, and let's have a coffee or whatever drink we prefer and talk about it, because this is how a network grows.
Well said. Well said. And for me, I think the takeaway was, I like the analogy you did with the swimming pool. I go back to the talk, because without exploring data, I'm a practical person. So doing it in theory is one thing, but to practice it is completely different. So to explore that and challenge yourself. So wrapping up, thank you, everybody. We will see you hopefully next time at the second event of the series, Bias and Ethical AI, on March 22nd. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.